Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI Radio Network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. If the average person were to make a movie, I think they would have some concept as to how to aim a camera and maybe how to do the sound or the lighting, but the special effects would be a problem. But the other thing is, and I know this you have been asked a lot, many of us who love music but have no idea how to compose really look at that ability as being something almost miraculous. Are you the kind of composer who works better on a deadline, for example?
I think that all artists work better on deadlines. You're going to write a symphony, you sit there and wait till you're struck by the muses. But when you're doing a motion picture score, you don't have that luxury. You know that in such and such a date there's going to be an orchestra of 80 musicians sitting there, and they have to have music to play. If they have no music to play, it's very costly, because you have to pay for them regardless. Yeah, I think the deadline is very important. I think that it's an enforced discipline. Stravinsky was very disciplined. He'd get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and he would sit down to work, regardless of what he accomplished. He would always work.
It was like going to the office.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, I think once you sort of almost mechanically get started, it starts the creative process going. You somehow, it's like putting primer in an engine or something. You have to get it going, and then the magic of creativity seems to take over.
What is it like to see motion pictures such as PATTON, or any picture that you've been involved in, with no music? Because I think I'm fairly representative of people who love music to the point that I have rented movies, not to watch them, but to listen to the score and the integration of the score into the movie. But you don't have that luxury. You have, Lois was telling me, input from a music editor with whom you have to work fairly closely. But to see some really important part of the movie completely dry of music, I guess you start to hear things, but I don't know whether I could take that or not.
Well, I see a picture for the first time and try to view it as an audience would view it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, I don't know. So many of the pictures today are, by the time I see them, have what's called temp track in them. And the directors will take records and they will track the picture with this music because they get a bit nervous seeing a few quiet moments in the film. And sometimes this can be a help to me, otherwise it can be a disturbance to me. So sometimes it interrupts my flow of concentration on the film. Generally, when I see a film for the first time, it's, as I said, I try to be an audience, but the odds are against me. The sound effects aren't in there, or the dialogue is missing, and generally this wrong music is in there, which is distracting.
Doesn't that sometimes happen? Doesn't that sometimes happen in an advanced preview where the score isn't done, that they'll have to put something? I remember in the retrospective they did on Gone with the Wind, I believe when they previewed it in San Bernardino, they used the music from Zorro.
Well, that was actually a wonderful way of doing it, to be perfectly honest. That was the process in the major studios back in the 40s, 50s, and even a little of it went into the 60s, where they would preview the film before they turned it over to the composer and the effects and all the people, and they would temp track it and then make the changes. Generally, 99% of the time, the process today is that they preview the picture after it's been scored and everything else. Then they make the changes, and then the music's got to be cut up by a music editor, or else you have to go back and rescore it. I think that way that you mentioned with Gone with the Wind is, as a matter of fact, on Star Trek now, they were going to preview it this weekend. And I recorded 2 days. I recorded about 20 minutes of music for the picture, so they were going to use some of that. They were going to use all the new music I wrote, plus temp tracking it with the music I wrote for the first picture. Now, it's very strange. They're going to preview the picture, and later on, as a matter of fact, on the day that I'm starting to record the final 3 days of music for the picture. I mean, a little late to do anything, but they'll make changes, and I'll be probably changing it as I'm recording it.
As a layman who loves music and can play it but can't write it, I feel that whenever a theme is established, such as the
part of Hoosiers, I was whistling outside. And I saw, that, for example, the restored version of Lawrence of Arabia 2 weeks ago with Maurice Jarre's music.
I want to see that myself.
It's a splendid print. That whenever that theme is reintroduced or comes back in, it not only pulls the viewer back in, but gives you a sense of security to some extent. Miklos Rosa in Ben-Hur had leitmotifs similar to Wagner for various characters. And there was one scene when he's in Rome with Charlton Heston and Jack Hawkins. It's as if he's thinking of his mother, while Jack Hawkins is talking to him hundreds of miles away, because you can see his face wandering, and Rosa's score is very evocative of the music used for his mother. When you reintroduce a theme, have I hit it there that you're tying up the loose ends? I guess the best word I can think of is I feel comforted sometimes when I hear that main theme come back. It's if, yes, we're on the right track.
Oh, absolutely. I think a better example of that is in sequels, where the people have had a chance to really absorb those themes. It's very difficult. You do a film, generally the audience is going to see it once. Unless you plaster that theme or something all the way through it, the likelihood of the audience getting it the first time around is rather remote unless you play it over and over and over again. It's the idea of having a theme for 5 different themes for 5 different characters is a great idea on paper, but that makes it even more obscure for an audience to try and absorb all of this material. An audience is not really concentrating on the music. It's tough if you go to a concert and try and remember what you've heard the first time around.
It's like the old thing about walking out humming the scenery.
Yeah, sometimes people walk out humming. It depends on how you use it. But I've noticed in sequels, these themes have been established, like in the Bond pictures. I mean, you sort of sit there and wait for it to come back in. If
not the theme, at least the timbre,
motif,
the texture, of the instrumentation.
And I know that, on Rambo, I was always keep using the theme over and over again. So, by the third picture, people are getting, there comes the Rambo theme and all that. And there was a thing, on Indiana Jones, and I said, John Williams, after I saw, did a wonderful score, but I loved the theme he did for the first one, the March. And I said, why don't you use it more in the second one? I really wanted to hear that theme come blasting out. And I think he should have used it more. It was such a good theme. I'm not criticizing it, but I would have done it naturally. And, in Star Trek now, I'm using, the theme I think by now is... I think it's
pretty...
tired
of it?
No, I think
it's a lovely piece.
It should be, now being the theme of the television show, I think it's pretty well established. So that, as a matter of fact, it was very funny. Part of the music I recorded was the theme for the main title, and it was, played it through, and I turned around in the booth. Everybody was cheering and around. It got everybody up. I didn't get that effect the first time I recorded it 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But because it's so familiar now with these people, all of a sudden to hear it live with a big orchestra playing it, and a new version of it, newly orchestrated, and we got all charged up over it.
Jerry, I think that the real excitement is the realization that you don't know what's coming next. I mean, I don't know what you're going to compose next. You may not know what you're going to compose next, but there's the realization that there will be new music and new themes, things we haven't heard before.
Well, hopefully not.
And that's going to be exciting.
I think so.
Thank you for taking the time to talk. I've rambled all over the place.
That's all right. That's good.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm glad you liked Hoosiers.
And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI Radio Network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.